Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome back to the stage Mr. Nick Gowing.
Wow, you've all got stamina. I take my hat off to you, but I'm not wearing one. We got 45 minutes here and we're running late. President Vicente Fox is going to be speaking after this. We're going to be talking about tomorrow's consumer portrait. Tomorrow's moderator is not going to sit down. This evening's moderator is going to stand up because I'd like ideas from you. You can either put them up there on the screen using those the addresses, or you can put up your hand and I'm going to come to you immediately. It's about the consumer of the future. What is the portrait? When is the future? Is the future the day after tomorrow? Is it 20 months? Is it 20 years? Let's have some fun. Let's have some vision. Let's be radical. And Lesley here is going to try and, or she's not going to try, she is going to capture the spirit of all of you. You are all, after all, consumers. And that's what we want to look at. How radical are you thinking about the way you're going to consume what you don't need today and what you might need the day after tomorrow in ways which you've never even thought about? That's what we want to be looking at. And what about the next generation? The next generation is the youngsters, the millennials, X, Y, Z. And as Robin's just pointed out, it's also about the graying generation. They're great consumers, which are keeping many industries going, many startups going, because of course they are an expanding part of consumption. Let me just introduce, because I'm going to ask you if you've got ideas as well. Who have you got up here? We've got Lesley is our graphic recording artist. Thank you, Lesley. Guy Diedrich, who's Chief Innovation Officer for Cisco. We've got Antonio Boadas, who is Global Communications Director for Procter & Gamble. We've got Rainer Speh, who's Chief Technology Officer for Siemens. And we've got Robin Bew from the Economist Intelligence Unit. So we're going to have a bit of fun, as well as informing you about how radical things have to be. Sharing. What about upcycling? Have you thought about upcycling, using old items in a new way? It's not just about Uber. It's about a whole raft of new startups and what the next generation want, of co-working. You could even, if you're a lady, rent a handbag. There's a business in that. What's the consumer going to be saying about that in the future? And the future, as I say, is probably the day after tomorrow, not the year after tomorrow. And what about the freedom you want and how you're going to access stuff? How will you know about it? And the enormity of the digital explosion. So I've said to all of them, give me a maximum of a minute of a great big idea. Rainer, your big idea.
Well, I think shopping of the standard stuff you need at home will be gone within the next 2 years. Well, you can deliver everything automatically, either by UAVs or drones. They will ship it automatically to your home. You have not to order it. Of course, the fridge is under control of RFIDs. Everybody knows what's needed inside. If you're going to run short on something, it's automatically ordered in the shop and it's delivered automatically. Even deep frozen fruit, you have a fridge box outside the door and it's put in the fridge box, and once you come home you can put it out and get it back in the fridge.
Some might say, are you dreaming? Are you being practical?
No, I think that's well, to some extent, if you go to supermarkets today, you have these RFIDs built in the packages already. That's a matter of fact. You can do this automatically. It's not a dream, really. Technology is there.
All right. Bob, could we just put up the address again in case people want to file stuff to me onto my iPad? There it is. This is old technology now, so maybe something else will be in existence next time we all meet here, probably in a year's time. Guy.
Visiting the traditional doctor's office will be obsolete in 20 years.
20 years?
20 years.
What about 20 months?
In 20 months, you will be fundamentally no longer required to show up to a doctor's office to get most of your care.
Will you be getting your care off an app, off a smartphone?
That's right. So ultimately what you'll do, you'll sit at home, you'll connect to a doctor, you will have a painless needle, which will draw blood, run it through a small microfluidic system, which will do the blood test, which will send it to the doctor. It'll also take your vitals. and the doctor will look at your vitals, read your blood test, confirm a diagnosis, be able to tell the pharmacy exactly what you need, and then your pharmacy, your pharmaceutical will be delivered by courier to your home. You've never
Will you
had to leave
actually
your
be
home.
in contact with a doctor? Where will the doctor be?
Absolutely, you could be through telepresence. You could never leave your home. The doctor could never leave his home and be able to conduct a thorough examination.
If there are doctors here who want to inject an idea of whether that's practical, please come back. Let's move. Guy, what's your minute of radical thought?
Antonio?
Antonio, sorry.
Yeah, Antonio. Thank you.
Sorry.
I think the future is already here. We just need to organize it a little bit better because your idea already exists. At Procter & Gamble, we have this technology that connects Amazon to our suppliers. So you just press the button and you get your Tide at home immediately, almost immediately, the day after. So we can order already from home. What will be radical for the future is that you don't need even to order it. Is you have a smart laundry machine that knows when you are really low under your supply, and then you get it immediately, or any other product, you can print it in your 3D machine and you get the diapers. Instead of ordering, you can print your own diapers. You can print your own coffee machines. You can print everything you need.
I'm worried when you say the future's already here because the day after tomorrow there'll be a new future.
And we need to reinvent it every single day.
Every single day?
Yes.
So we could have this session every day to reinvent?
Absolutely.
Okay, good, that's great. If there are others out there, before I go to Robin, anyone want to come in because I'll get the microphone to you? One down here, and can you help me with anyone who wants to speak, including from the women's section? Robin, a minute of vision, please.
We've just heard from Professor Rayner, we've just heard there's a whole load of boring consumption we won't have to do anymore, and the internet-connected fridge, which I guess his company's going to make, will order all this stuff for you online, probably from P&G, I guess. But that poses some interesting questions about how on earth P&G are going to market to consumers when the fridge is doing the shopping. So I think there's an interesting question there. But what about the rest of consumption? Because it just seems to me that if all the boring stuff you're no longer participating in, then all the interesting consumption is going to have to get a whole lot more interesting. So my hypothesis is that you will only actively engage in the future in consuming things when they're very personalised and customised to you. So I think 3D printing of something that's completely bespoke to you, or some kind of experiential package which is completely designed around you, those will be the sorts of things that people will spend their time on consuming. Anything which is standardised and looks like a utility will just be done by a machine.
Let's just nail that, Antonio. How do you market in this new environment?
Yeah, the issue will be that advertising will be dead. So the traditional advertising as we see it today on TV or printed will be dead. It is about conversations between consumers, among consumers and the companies.
Right up.
So the transactional relationship of getting a detergent, it is just a decision that you make only once in your life. And this is critical for companies to get into people's life at least once, and then everything will be automatic. For the rest, which will imply shared values, will imply conversations, then companies will need to find a way to get into people's networks, people that they actually trust, and actually help them to make the final decision.
Let's just be clear. Will the detergent of tomorrow actually arrive by drone before you even realize you need some more?
Exactly, and exactly, right on. They will get in front of your door by drone without making decisions.
I would like to come back to this more personalized stuff, what you were mentioning. I think even this will change. We will get 3D images of each and every person, so you know exactly what's needed, and you can order online your fashion, and you will get it delivered, custom tailored on the minute.
Are we dreaming or having a nightmare here, or is this all very practical?
3D scanners are available. We have to agree on a common format that the different fashion is, agree on a common format, and can you give you the different offers?
All right, let me just get a few more views, and then we'll try and get to the root of what is really happening. Please. Who else? Please, go ahead. 3.
Yes, thank you. Now, if this is the dreaming session, so to speak, now It
It's
means
the
that-
radical session.
Exactly, but then if the diagnosis by doctors are done remotely, then why do we bother with human doctors? You might as well have a Google doctor that will diagnose for you, and then we don't need human doctors. We only need them for operation.
Would you want to be diagnosed by Eric Schmidt?
No, definitely not.
Or one of his algorithms? Would you like to be diagnosed by an algorithm?
I think the panel will need to answer that for me. I don't have the answer.
All right, well, do you think people will accept being diagnosed by an algorithm?
No. We're talking about the first line of defense here, right? The first line of interaction between a doctor and a patient. We're talking about the gathering of typical diagnostics that would be done inside a facility. Lest we forget, we've just come back from Davos, where the machine age and brain-like thinking and brain-like machines were all discussed, right? Brain-like systems, DNA storage, all of the sort of next-generation things. Lest we forget, machines don't think.
All right.
Machines can't see a pale face. They can't see jaundice. They can't see what a doctor can see. So we're talking about the first line of defense here that would be very instructive for a doctor.
I've seen some scary artificial intelligence, though.
It can get pretty profound.
I think that's wrong. I think we will go to a place where there's no human intervention in terms of doctors and many other things as well. It's just a question about how quickly society gets comfortable with that. So if you think about other sorts of technologies, driverless trains, people used to be very nervous of those. They're pretty normal now. We're moving towards a world, I imagine, where we don't have pilots on the flight deck anymore for aircraft. Already they say that most aircraft crashes caused by pilot error. So a lot of talk about taking pilots out of the equation. Wouldn't surprise me at all if doctors were taken out of the equation at some point down the line. Certainly true that our audience is not ready today. 50 years? I'm not so sure.
All right, one day you'll have conference sessions without moderators. Who's got the microphone, please, too, and then down here as well.
Yes, actually thinking of where is this going to lead us is really frightening. I believe.
Did you say frightening?
Yes.
You've got to live with this.
Let's think of Google, thinking of what we are really need, taking decisions of what we should have at dinner tonight. So these kind of because really Google is the only company that can take these further. So what do you think? I just need to think to get your feedback on this, please.
All right. Anyone else, please? One again and down here. Can we get the microphone here? Anyone in the women's section, please? Can we get the microphone here? One.
Yeah. Can we go a little bit crazy here?
Are we not crazy enough?
No, not crazy enough. Okay, what about this? In 20 years from now, we will not die. Human will not die. And you believe that?
We're talking about the consumers of the future, not the dead consumers.
I'm coming to that. Okay. I'm quoting now Michio Kaku, who's a very well scientist, who was talking about the future of technology. And he was saying that we have, as a human, single out the gene that is responsible for dying.
Okay.
And in fact, we have reversed the chemical reaction that is causing this gene to advance us in age.
Okay.
In future, we don't need the doctors anymore because we won't get disease, because as of these technologies or biotechnology is going crazy in this age. Doctors won't be needed anymore, and we don't need even the diagnosis devices.
All right. Of course, funeral directors are dealing with customers, but they happen to be dead customers or the family of dead customers. Let me get two more, and then we'll come back. I'll come to you in a moment, please. Three, please.
Am I on? Okay. My question is very simple and straightforward to the gentleman from Procter & Gamble. I mean, all you said, down the road in the developed world, the US, Europe, is doable, and some of it is already being done. But as you know, economic growth is now in the emerging markets. A lot of the stuff that you talked about, the washing machine automatically reordering, it's not doable. The power shortages and other things. So in your view, in the emerging market, whether in India or in Africa where I'm based, what will be the consumer of tomorrow? I mean, we're talking about the next 5 years, where these infrastructures don't even exist yet.
All right,
How would you define it? What's the portrait and what is the vision?
stack that for the moment. Please move the microphone across to the next table.
Well, I notice we don't have a woman up here.
Yeah, I've made that point already.
All right, I came in a moment late, but, so I'm an anthropologist in my avocation in life, and you look back in history, and the role of marketplaces and agoras and what goes on in these spaces. Yes, some of that's happening in the virtual world, but I find in my life with my friends that we're rejecting a lot of the anonymity of this, and we want human space. We want to shop together. We want to be, it becomes our social interaction. How do you link that
Good
with
point.
what you're describing?
Yeah, that's a great point. Let me just give you 3 comments coming through here from Mustafa. What about if schools move to homes? Smart beds help students sleep well and learn well. A question from Asma. What is the chance of success of forecasting future demand of an individual customer? How will that be done? And a particular question for Cisco. Using information, how confidential is confidential? Right. You've heard the kind of ideas that are out there. What is going on in your view, Rainer?
Well, I would like to come back to the problem with the doctor. I think in the future, the doctor will call the patient and not the other way around. And
And tell the patient they're ill.
Exactly. Of course, well, if I'm going to my doctor, they're making a blood test, and a day after, we have a dialogue, what's going wrong. This can be done also by a virtual doctor. There's no need, if I have a watch, they can take the blood, can send the data to an analysis,
Not to
and
mention,
I get back. Huh?
not to mention wearables that are going to be able to monitor your blood sugar levels and a number of other things. So
Sure.
you're absolutely
Yeah.
right.
And then, of course, the virtual doctor is calling you, and just call me to see him, or to see a real doctor, for instance. This could really be up in 2 years from now. No problem on that.
What's the technology in all of this, Guy? When it comes, your global innovation officer, you have to think for Cisco 5 years ahead, 10 years ahead, maybe 5 months ahead. But what is making this possible in terms of the scaling up of data and what is known about people?
I think data is not. I think data is not a problem. You will have to have the sensor available. That's the most important thing. The data, if the analysis is done on the smartwatch, there is less data going back to a data center or to big data.
Guy.
So, set a context here very quickly. From 1990 to 2010, we went through the information age. From 2010 to 2030, we're going through the digital age. So we're 5 years into it. This is the transition period. What does it mean? Information age, we connected 5 billion things and people. By the end of the digital age, we would have connected 500 billion things and everyone. Imagine what that does for the developing world, for the emerging world, for markets that are currently unconnected. They become consumers for the first time. And they become consumers at a time when we've never been more connected, we've never had more information, we've never had better analytics to make that information useful, and it changes everything. Somebody mentioned Dr. Kaku just a little bit ago. My favorite presentation by him involves the sensor that goes in the toilet that will tell you very, very early if you have cancer or any other disease, because that sensor multiplexes. You can make that sensor detect for 200 different diseases that may be present in, pardon me, your urine or your fecal material. And that can be told to you right away. Imagine that, your toilet, a smart toilet. That's one example. That's one of 500 billion things that will be connected. The world changes. That's why it's impactful.
Which has enormous implications for actuarial valuations and risk and calculating whether you should have insurance.
It changes everything. There is not one thing that you can think of that won't be impacted during the digital age. Fundamentally, you will not recognize day-to-day society and functioning in 20 years.
20 years or 10 or 5?
Well, I put out 20 because I think probably right up until 10 years from now, there will be recognizable things, and then we'll be into what is the next age, and that's not named yet. Some people think it's going to be the quantum age, but right now, let's worry about the digital age.
So this kind of discussion, when the next generation access this online, they'll think it's an archival fascination, a bit of a freak show of where things were going to go when they're already living it, the next generation.
That's right. Our major transitions, the information age, will be for the anthropologists and the
Robin, what's going on here in your estimation?
Well,
The new consumer.
It's very clear that the technology is capable of taking us to a world which is completely different from the one we live in. I guess the interesting question is whether consumers are going to be fully bought into making that transition too. So we had the lady there talking about her desire for a social retail experience, which is consistent with part of what we've talked about, but not all about. I think the other thing is about privacy. And you asked the question about actuarial valuations of risk.
And also privacy and confidentiality has been raised by others too.
It's not at all clear to me that consumers will be comfortable with the amount of data about themselves which they have to give up to participate in this. The gains are very obvious, as you mentioned about healthcare benefits and the like, but also the expectations of a loss of privacy and what that might involve, so what it might do to your insurance premiums, what it might do to the way the government thinks about you as an individual, those things could get in the way, and it's very unclear to me that the consumer is going to just blindly follow down the track that the technology could potentially take you on.
I think there are three key concepts that will remain true even in these crazy conditions of the future. One is consumer is at the center of everything, so they have the power, and they have the power to decide what they want, how they want it, and when they want it. The second is they are asking the companies and the providers to make me care, because they have so much information around, they want to be convinced. They're open to listen, but they want to make sure that they will understand that we need to work with them and to inform them on what we are and what we are offering. And the third one is tell me the truth. So don't think that you can hide information, because I can find it. And if you betray me, you'll be in troubles, because I'll tell my friends, which is my trusted circle, going to the anthropological concept. So I'll make sure that you will not survive after this.
But Guy is making the very clear point that digitally there will be a massive amount of information about you. And if you therefore sign off and sign out of that information, you're presumably creating questions about why you've opted out of it. Is it going to be easy to opt out in your view, Antonio?
Yes, it is going to be easy to opt out and to basically to disappear from that conversation and to join other conversations.
Well, I just wanted to say that there's the other thing that we have to keep in mind is that none of this is linear. So there's a lot of concurrency that's going on here, and the current state of security is not satisfactory. We will very soon have extraordinary security capabilities. Everybody's working towards predictive analytics and applying that to cybersecurity. Privacy will be an opt-in, opt-out. There will be an ability to remain very, very private, especially regarding medical records, because anything that we do has to be HIPAA compliant, right? But at the end of the day, it's going to be about security, because only when you are completely secure can you provide privacy.
Right now.
Well, I agree that we have to distinguish between privacy and security, two different measures. But in the future, big data or private data doesn't necessarily mean that it's public data. Of course, what I think is that we will get total new mechanisms on encryption of data. We will have private keys, and whenever your data is needed or used, there will be a request maybe coming to you, and you have to release this. So it's not a given that Google can use everything. So this will be really a total different mechanisms what we have today, totally different from
Robin, we talked about X, Y, Z, millennials and so on, but there's another generation of which some of us are already getting to be part of. How important is that
That's right.
as a consumer portrait?
We've talked a lot here about the technology of tomorrow, and I guess the implication is it'll be the millennial generation which is taking advantage of that. But actually, the astonishing amounts of spending power in the world today are actually tied up with the older generations. If you look to a continent like Western Europe, aging very rapidly. If you look to China, which is also aging incredibly rapidly and has about a quarter of the world's population living in it. But actually, when you go forward 25 years, the majority of spending in the world by consumers is going to be spent by people who are greying, not by this young millennial population. And of course, that has implications for not just the technology that they want to use, but also what they want to buy. People at that stage of their life have very different needs, very different aspirations. You're likely to be seeing much more money spent on leisure activities, those sorts of things, that will change the shape of consumption in completely different ways than the ones we've been talking about so far.
Right, let's get a few more views. We've got about 15 minutes to run, please. One moment.
My name is Fadi. I own a communications agency. And my question is to Mr. Boadas. You mentioned that traditional advertising as we see it will be dead very soon. How do you see advertising in the age of on-demand 3D printing? Is it something that the 3D printer would suggest new products, or how does B&G currently see that?
Antonio, can you just stack that for the moment, please? One and then two.
Yes, hello. My name is Mohammed. I'd like to ask about the role of virtual reality when it comes to tomorrow's consumers. I personally think that VR has a huge role to play in determining how consumers behave in the future. I'm thinking 20 to 25 years from now, in the sense that I won't
But VR is here already.
I know it is, but I'm talking in the sense of VR as something that's mainstream, something that's used by everybody, and it's just
But it's
like a
almost
computer.
there already, isn't it, VR?
But it's not to the level where everybody will have a VR machine in his home, just like they have computers in their home or mobile phones. So I'm thinking that instead of going to a mall to shop, I could just strap in and have a fully immersive experience of what it's like to be in a shopping mall. So instead of test driving a car, I could actually do that using VR.
I tell you, in Davos last week, I experienced some virtual reality. It was amazing. And it's quite cheap as well.
I can imagine.
Good. Okay, VR, stack that. And two. Who's got the microphone there? Two.
Yes, thank you. My name is Ibrahim Al-Turki from Rawad International Studies. I would like to go back to the earlier interesting point about doctorless, clinic, or driverless car, or pilotless aircraft, or pencil-less also education. I think it's, in my view, I think I disagree with the guy who said it's not possible. I think it's potentially possible, especially if we know that what is invention, what is technology. Technology and inventions are no more than an extension of us, an extension of human being. So in the long run, not as defined by Keynes, we will be alive, but in the long run, all of these technologies, all of these possibilities are going to be real. Because what Picasso said is, if you can imagine it, then it's real. Thank you.
What's the long run for you? How long's the long run?
It's a long run. Ask Mr. Robert.
All right, in the long run, we're all dead as well.
Yes, I disagree with this.
There's a gentleman there, his hand up, and then I'm going to come to you. VR, the marketing question for P&G as well. Number two, please.
Okay, my name is Hamid Dreli. Okay, for the radical idea, it's smart advertisements. Okay, imagine advertisements that mold and shape themselves into what you like to see, what you like to hear, and what you like to feel. And also pop up whenever you're willing to see them.
All right, P&G.
Okay. But I also have a quick question, if you don't mind.
Well, that's a question.
It's a bit of a core question about the data itself. Okay, real quick, Malcolm Gladwell's talk about big data, about the Facebook, Snapchat problem. He says that data can only take you so far. So what we're saying, theoretically, from what he's saying, is that what we are all saying will happen, but come a few years later, our data will be obsolete, and we have to recollect our data. Would that happen?
All right, that question, you got two questions there, Antonio, on marketing and advertising.
Absolutely. And again, these are very extreme scenarios. I didn't say that this will happen tomorrow. So this is the big trend. The big trend is that the current situation of companies communicating one to many probably will be over at some point of time, because we are no longer exposed to the traditional TV. So we're exposed to several screens during the day, because we don't necessarily trust corporations. We trust our friends. So therefore, the current copies or pieces of advertising are not necessarily credible. I prefer to hear and learn from my friends, for people I trust, or for what we call the influencers. So if this trend continues as it is today, we might see a world without advertising. So that's the first point. And the second is, so how do we really turn this around and make sure that people get informed about the products the same way that when we wake up every day, there is something viral that is taking over Twitter. So somebody put something on the networks, and then all of a sudden something becomes famous. So probably this will be the way how people will get informed about products, benefits, and new trends.
All right, Rainer, can I just move on VR? Actually?
Yes, I will.
We've got 10 minutes to go.
We'll just combine it with advertising. I think in the future we'll see that a company will just release a toolbox where you can build your own stuff there. And if you look for furniture, for instance, they can really tailor it. Then, of course, you can use VR to put it in your living room to live with it, to see how it works.
But you can make the furniture on
the furniture
on 3D printing.
Exactly.
You don't need to order it from IKEA.
You will just get the toolbox. You will do it. You can prove it by virtual reality, and then by 3D printing, you will get it as designed by yourself. And this is the new kind of advertising. It's also, it was mentioned during the last 2 days here. We are talking about the fourth industrial revolution, and for me, the fourth industrial revolution is also some kind of a batch size one. So it's really a custom tailored product with the same quality as mass products.
Just to say that I think it's exactly how it's going to go, but the interesting thing there is that the experience, that VR experience, and then looking at the furniture in your home, that could end up becoming more valuable than the furniture itself. So in terms of what companies are selling, it's going to turn around so that the experience part is the bit that people really value, and the products become almost commodities.
Do you want to come in at all? No? On VR? No. Right, over here, and you've got and over here as well, please. Go ahead, one. Number one, please.
Hello? Hi, I'm James Fierro with the Eco Capacity Exchange. And my question is about security. We look at the future of the consumer. We are relinquishing more and more data in the cloud of big data. All our personal habits, our credit cards, our banking information. How do we avoid the hack in the future? I mean, any code that is written, I understand, can always be broken.
All right, let's go straight to Cisco and Siemens. Are there limits to security given the enormity of the cyber threat at the moment? Is this going to be a massive limiter?
It is. Security is the #1 issue moving forward in the digital age. We will be constrained in what we can and can't do by security limitations. Now, I'll tell you that there's an awful lot of work going on right now, and I mentioned it earlier about predictive analytics. Predictive analytics applied to cybersecurity gives you the best indication of when a cyber attack is about to occur. There's also very interesting work being done in the virtual reality space, where you create a virtual environment, so when the hacker comes in, they think they're in messing with your system. They're actually in messing with a virtual version of your system. You can track them, you can hunt them down, you can get them, and yet at the same time, I don't want you to think that there's any absolute guarantee, because we haven't stopped traditional crime. What makes us think that we can stop digital crime? What we can do is come up with really good defenses, come up with really good plans to try and thwart them, but there's always going to be the threat, and there's always going to be a constraint placed on what we can do.
All right, is there agreement that this is from all of you on this?
Well, I think that security in the future, and it is still today, is the #1 non-functional requirement of all new systems. So it has to be designed from day one on. It's not just a matter that you put security as the last step just before rollout. It has to be designed and has to be considered also for a robust system, of course.
Right.
I think, just to finish though, so you understand that we will get to the point where we are evenly matched. I genuinely believe that, where you will always have the same constraint, but you will feel secure in the digital world.
Some comments here before I go to number 3. Very soon, cash will never be needed and will not even be printed. That's part of the new consumer of the future. This is another question. Consumer behavior and reaction is sometimes slower than the development in technology. How can we build awareness? And a question here, I think probably for Antonio, is it possible to drive consumer decisions?
It is possible to model it and to work with them on shaping the future. Just a little anecdote. So when P&G was, Procter & Gamble was founded 178 years ago, the company was really focused only on making candles. And that was everything the company did. After understanding consumer needs, behaviors, and expectations, the company started expanding its scope and reaching out to other consumer areas. So we can model the future. We can help consumers to start into the future. It is possible. What is counterintuitive and we shouldn't be doing, it's forcing consumers to behave in a way that is not natural at all.
Because there's another question here from Pavan. Which consumer behaviors will drive or hinder adoption of new technology? Is that a legitimate question? Rainer.
I think it's just if you are used to do it since 5 years, you are not prepared to change it the other day, but this is the only one. If you can show some benefits to the customer, I think he is always prepared to change.
All right, we've got 3 minutes, so we'll go to microphone number 3. Quick, please.
Dr. Mohammed, professor. From the past, from the Stone Age to the information age and the digital age and the smart age and the robotic age, the main ingredient will be for the consumer-centric will be the compassion, morality, values, honesty, faith, and I think that will be evergreen, whether how much will be technology-oriented.
All right, will consumer of the future have compassion and values? I'll come back to you in one moment. Think about that one. Number 2, number 1, then that's going to be it. 2, right at the back, number 2. There's a lady there, I think. Number 2, please, microphone. Well, go to number 1 first, and then you can fix number 2. Another lady, thank you.
Marie-Laure from Chaos. I'm interested to know if you have crazy ideas about our future consumption of water.
Of water? Okay, and is that microphone working or not? Okay, I didn't mean to deny you the microphone. All right, did you pick that one up about water, about the pressure there, if I understood you correctly?
You mean making potable water, or what do you think about if you take water?
So do you have ideas about how we will consume water?
How we consume water? Well, I think at least we'll have to use less water. Of course, if I look to the kingdom, on the average, every cabinet is using 269 liters. I think this was the figure from 2013. If you go to Europe, it's around 100. So first of all, we have to be more efficient. And this is one of the major topics, I think.
Right, the consumer at the back, number 3. We've got the microphone working, or a different microphone.
Yes, hi. One thing I find it worrying, at least for me, is the number of people losing their jobs. You know, if you have apps and technologies and sensors, robots doing the jobs of a lot of people will be out of the job market, and they will no longer be consumers. What do you think of that?
All right, thank you. That's about jobs, work, and the kind of way people will earn money. And in a minute and 3 seconds, we're not going to answer that. So thanks for putting it on the agenda. Can I just come back to that other question from over there? Values and compassion. And there's another one here. Can we rely on historical data to predict consumer behavior in the future? 15 seconds each. Robin.
I think the values point, I don't see that the consumer is particularly changing here. The technology we're wrapping around the consumption decision is different. There's no reason to think that people will be any different underneath. So I think the morality point is absolutely still there.
Guy.
Regarding data, do you want me to answer the data question? The bottom line is that data, historical data, will be useless except as history. We can absolutely capture data in real time now, and that's what's going to be happening. You're going to have constant replenishment of data. When you have brain-like systems that are as fast as they are today, when you have the emergence of things like DNA storage, which is storage based on the double helix, that you took everything that's going through the internet right now, on the World Wide Web, every bit of information, you captured it in a moment, you would fill up half of a beaker with DNA storage. That's how powerful it is. So imagine if you have the storage capacity to capture everything in real time, do analytics, and move on to capturing it again and again and again. That's the future.
Ryan, Antonio.
At the end, we should consider that we are all human beings, and we still be human beings, despite of all the technology, and we do it for the sake of the people and not for the sake of technology.
The same point, we're not becoming machines, we are still human beings.
I hope we've reassured you. You've seen the future here, and thank you. I hope we've rewarded your stamina during the day. President Vicente Fox is going to be here in a moment, but Lesley has kindly captured everything here. Doctor calls patient, not the other way around. Emerging markets, what's the consumer of tomorrow? Personal and custom ordering, how to get into people's networks. Do we need human doctors? Where will this take us? Quote, it's frightening. I hope we've reassured you, though, and you're on the cusp of the wave as it moves forward amazingly quickly. Thank you very much for your attention and all your contributions. Thank you to the panel as well.